Hey you, and welcome. In this video, we will learn about DOM, Document Object Model. So far, we have been using JavaScript to inject HTML into the document. This time, we want to query the document and see what elements we want to work with and modify them using the JavaScript. And that's where Document Object Model, DOM, comes in very handy. So for this exercise, we don't need any VS Code. We're just going to be using the browser to manipulate the DOM on a web page. And in this case, I have a web page open, which takes me to W3 School's documentation for what a DOM looks like. And on their page, they have a very good resource. They have an image to break it down into what a DOM tree looks like. And in this case, DOM will have a document at the top level. That's what we have been referring to in our JavaScript when we say document dot. And then after that, you have a bunch of other elements. It could be HTML head or body. And then inside the body or inside the head, you may have other elements that you may be using, like a tag or title. Then you may have classes attached to it maybe, or you have ID attribute. So all of that allows us to query the document and get the element that we're trying to work with, and also modify what it looks like or what behavior it may have. And that's what the Document Object Model API allows us to do using JavaScript. All right, let's dive right into it. I'm going to show you guys how to query the document. So I'll open my developer tools. I'm going to do Command Option K. That opens my developer tools. And let's scroll up a little bit. I want to target the icon on the top left-hand corner using the knowledge that I have about document. Also, I want to open the inspector. Perfect. So I have three sections of the screen. I have the top where the browser web page is open. I have the inspector where I can see what different elements look like in the HTML document, and then the console where I can run my JavaScript. First things first, let's query what a document looks like. So in the document, you can see it's an object, and inside the object, there's tons of things available to me. One of them is body. That's what we have been using, is when we say document.body, and inside .body, we can even do inner HTML, which I think if I go further down, you can see all the HTML is available to me there. That's what a document looks like. Now, we're not going to keep doing that for every element. There may be too many elements to go through. If you were to search for every link on this page, there's probably many of them. So that's where Document Object Model, DOM, allows us to have a bunch of methods to query our DOM. So what I'll do here is work with the first one, document.query selector. And this uses the CSS selectors that we have worked with before. And you can use either ID, class, attribute, the element name, or element tag name. So in this case, let's just target the first link. So I'll just say in the single quotes, A. And there we go. I'm targeting the first element, which is the link, which is the logo right there. So if I was to bring it up in the inspector, you can see I'm targeting this element. If I was to press enter, that's the element that I have access to. So I have selected that. And now using that selector, I can make modifications to it. But not only that, we can also target all the links. We can say query selector all. And instead of returning the first anchor tag that it encounters, give me all the anchor tags that are available to me on this page. If I press enter, it gives me an array. Seems like there's 534 links. Seems perfectly fine because in the drawer they have a bunch of links, and that's where we're getting all these links from. So that's how you get many objects or many elements. So let's take that away. What I'll do, I'll go back to document.query selector, select the first anchor tag. And now let's take a look at how we can modify this anchor tag using the knowledge of DOM. First API for the target that I want to look at is the class list. So notice how for the A tag, there's a bunch of classes that are already written in the HTML. I can access that by doing class list, .class list right after the target that I've gotten. And it will give me all the classes in an array. Right? And I can make changes to it. I can either take away some of the styles. So I can say, let's take away padding 16. So I'll target that again. I can just press up key, class list, dot remove, and single quote, I'm calling that as a function, W3 padding 16. And notice what happens in the element. And when I press enter, oh, I didn't press that properly. There we go. The class list or the class is gone now because I removed it. I can add that back in using .add instead of .remove, and it's back there. I can also replace it by using the replace method, and this time it will ask me two arguments. First one is which class do you want to target, and next one would be what class do you want to replace it with, and I can say something and replace that. And there we go. In the HTML, it has replaced the class list for me. There we go. So that's how we use class lists. And we can, of course, modify the classes to have different styles and then use JavaScript to modify them based on different events that we will cover in the later videos. All right, so I'll clear this out for now. Next API I want to show you guys is the attributes API. So let's target this again. Instead of class list for the target, I will say has attribute. And has attribute will allow us to target the attribute name. So in this case, href or class or style. It will allow me to target that. And I can say, give me a tag, the first a tag, and see if it has the href element or attribute. And it does in this case. I could do a similar check for a different attribute. I can say, does it have an ID? And in this case, it's false. So that's how it checks whether or not the attribute exists. And based on the true or false, we can do some logic in our JavaScript. Similarly, I can also get the value of that attribute. So I can say get attribute and pass the attribute name. And it will tell me that href is set to w3schools.com. That's the website it's going to take you to. And I can modify it too. I can say instead of get, set href, and this time it will ask me for two arguments. It will be href, which will be the attribute that we're targeting, and next would be the value that we want to assign it to. So I can say change it to https google.ca, just like that. And there we go. In our HTML, the google.ca has been replaced, but it only stays there for the session that we're there. So of course, we're not doing any hacking here. We're just playing around with the document in a developer environment. Perfect. Let's clear this out. Using the style API, now we can change the style of the element as well. So using the same document selector, the query selector for anchor tag, the first one, I'll go back to it and I'll say style.style, and that should give me all the style elements that are available to me. And you can see it's a long list. This is basically all the CSS attributes, or CSS properties that we can make changes to. And if I scroll further down, you can see some of them that we are familiar with, like background color, there is borders, there's tons of them. And we can use all of that in JavaScript to programmatically change the CSS for an element. So let's do that now. I'll say style.background color instead of background dash color that we are used to in CSS. Like this. In JavaScript, this variable name is not allowed. So we all the DOM elements, their CSS is changed to camel case. So instead of the dash, you take away the dash and replace the first letter of the next word into capital case. So that means camel case. And then background color. That should allow me to access what the background color of this element is right now. There we go. Right now it's set to nothing. That's why it's empty. I'll go ahead and set it to red. Oh. Here we are. All right, it has changed on our HTML, and I can also see that in the inspector that there is a inline style for background color red. I can also change this inline style, which is width 77 right now. Get the width is set to 77 pixel. I'll change that to 10 pixels. It has to be in double quotes, 10 pixels. There we go. It has changed, and the style has changed as well. So that's the style API for DOM. And last but not least, we are going to create a brand new element that doesn't exist in our DOM and inject it inside without being destructive. Like before, we have replaced the whole DOM using inner HTML, but that takes away the old content. We want to keep the content that is there right now, but add to it using our own element. So I'll show you how to do that. We're going to use two different DOM APIs for that. So let's clear the console out. First one would be, I will assign this to a const div. And let's create document.create element. And we can provide it the tag name. In this case, the tag name will be div. And this will create an empty div for me. However, this div doesn't exist in the DOM yet. It doesn't exist anywhere here because I haven't pushed it up yet. So this is in a developer environment only, and it's not available in the actual page. I will take away a few of these open tags and scroll all the way to the bottom of body, because that's where it's going to show up. Whenever we append a div inside to the inside the DOM, is going to be added after. But before I do that, let's make it a little unique so we know that we added that. So I'll just say div dot id would be equals to new div. Oh, it has to be double quotes, new div. There we go. Let's see what the div looks like in our dev environment. That's what it will look like when it gets injected. Now let's go ahead and add that div into our DOM. I will call document.body. That's where this div is going to go. Dot append, and pass in the const that we created, which is called div, and press enter. And there we go. It has been added right above the closing tag of body. We have a new div that we appended. So we kept the old content and we added to it. All right. That's the DOM element API. I'll see you all in the next video.